The Western world seems to have embraced the doctrine of DEI, that is, diversity, equity and inclusion, with an almost religious fervour. The only problem is that you eventually end up, sooner or later, with complete idiots in positions of power and responsibility. Yes, folks, as soon as you go off what I consider to be the gold standard, that is, simple, basic equality, equality of opportunity, give everybody an equal chance. As soon as you go off that standard for choosing the best person, the best applicant for a job or for a place on your football team or whatever it might be, you're lost. The whole thing is bound to come a cropper. It's only a matter of time. As far as I'm concerned, if after the process of hiring or interviewing or recruiting or trying to get somebody onto your committee or Tiddlywinks team, you can say to me or anybody else, I chose the very best candidate that I could find. I chose out of all the people I had access to or who wanted the position, I chose the very best one. Then you're good to go. As far as I'm concerned, you've done the very best job you could possibly do in that situation, and you deserve success. Now, if you come to me and say, well, I had to get a black person in there, so there was some really good people showed up, but they just weren't blacks or couldn't hire or couldn't bring them on board. But then we had this one black person showed up. They didn't know anything about the thing and they weren't particularly interested. They didn't seem all that enthused, but they were black, so I had to hire them because I had to get a black. And then, that's where the whole thing founders. That's where the ship, the boat, has become unmoored from the shore and is now just sailing off into the wide open sea. And the first storm will sink that boat. But that seems to be where the West is now. It's no longer, and hasn't been for the past while, a case of we'll hire the very best person we can find. We're not going to look at skin colour. We're not going to look at gender, sexual orientation. We're not going to look at any disability factors. We're not going to look at religion. We're not going to look at any of that, because all we want is the best person for the job, the best person to fill the position. No, now there has to be quotas because it's diversity. Diversity, DEI, diversity. You've got to have diverse people. You can't just have a Tiddlywinks team of all white males. You couldn't possibly have that. Why, that's a horrendous idea. It's an abhorrent idea in the modern world. No, we have to get a quota of women in there. We've got to get a quota of racially diverse people. We've got to get a quota of sexually diverse people. Only then will it be deemed by the modern standards of religiosity and wokeism that this is a properly functional team, a properly functional outfit or company or government department. That's where we are now. And where that eventually ends up is you end up with complete idiots who aren't suited to a task, doing a task. You end up with complete morons operating on your colon or flying your jet off to Tenerife. Or in the case of the UK, my cousins over there in the UK, so many watch this channel and I do appreciate all of you, and we are, as I say, cousins. You now have a diversity hire representing you on the world stage, David Lammy. Many of you will be familiar with David Lammy.
What was the married name of the scientists Marie and Pierre who won the Nobel Prize for Physics in 1903 for their research into radiation?
Antoinette.
Curie.
His whole shtick seems to be that he's a black man.
That I stand here also as a black man, whose ancestors were taken in chains from Africa.
I have come across him over the years in various different iterations, and that seems to be his whole bit. That seems to be his whole act. He doesn't seem to have much else going on, and he certainly, well, let's just say he's not Brain of Britain.
What name is used for the highest gallery of seats in a theatre?
Pass.
And that's what I'd like to come on to. He's a diversity pick, and he has now risen to the position, the high office, that he represents the whole British nation, the whole British people, the whole British civilization. On the world stage. He's your guy. But is he the best person for the job? Well, let's look at some evidence, shall we? And, well, you can judge for yourself.
Who acceded to the English throne at the age of 9 on the death of his father Henry VIII in 1547?
Henry VII.
Edward VI.
What you talking about, Mr. D?
Which country's so-called Rose Revolution of 2003 led to the resignation of its president, Edward Shevardnadze?
Yugoslavia.
No, it was Georgia. Which fortress was built in the 1370s to defend one of the gates of Paris and was later used as a state prison by Cardinal Richelieu?
Versailles.
The Bastille. James Gandolfini played a mafia boss called Tony in which American television series?
Godfather.
The Sopranos. What?
You serious?
Is it transphobic to say only women have a cervix, David?
It's probably the case that only that trans women don't have ovaries, but a cervix, I understand, is something that you can have following various procedures and hormone treatment and all the rest of it.
What? What the fuck? Now, of course, this is also the David Lammy who said, and I quote, Churchill replaced Chamberlain just days before the Second World War. Lloyd George replaced Asquith weeks into the Somme. Eden lost his job during the Suez Crisis. The only problem with that is it's all complete bollocks. Unfortunately, mostly for the British people, the British, now Foreign Secretary, managed to get all facts in this piece wrong. Churchill actually replaced Chamberlain in May 1940, 9 months after the Second World War began. Lloyd George succeeded Asquith weeks after the Somme offensive had ended in December 1916. And Eden actually quit Number 10 in January 1957, 2 months after the ceasefire led to a cessation of hostilities between Britain and Egypt. I think even the slowest among us would readily admit a student of history, David Lammy, is not. Now, as any of you who watch this channel or have watched it in the past will be more than aware, I am no fanboy of the Irish political system and the vast majority of people who inhabit it. I think a lot of them are self-serving narcissists. I think a lot of them are basically not very bright. They just happen to be somebody's son or daughter or nephew or niece or uncle or aunt or the family dog or whatever. It's just we have a lot of the wrong people in Parliament and they seem to just stay there endlessly. But for once, I think my British cousins, the UK, has outdone even us. And that's saying something with the elevation of David Lammy to the position of Minister for Foreign Affairs. Yes, he now represents the British people, the British nation, on the world stage.
I stand here also as a black man.
Now, on this occasion, he was not only as a black man, but also as the prime representative of the British people, the British nation, the British Empire, if you will. He was addressing what seems to be a veteran Russian diplomat, Vasily Nebenzia. Now, I couldn't possibly put words in that man's mouth or even thoughts in that man's head. But if I was to cause it a guess, that's what he might have been thinking, listening and watching this display from Britain, or shall we say modern Britain as it is today. One couldn't help imagine that he might be thinking, you know, whatever path has led the once mighty British Empire, the once mighty British people, the once mighty British civilization to this destination, where they have a complete, what seems imbecile, a moron, a complete idiot, as their premier spokesperson on matters everything British. Whatever that path was that led them there, we don't want it. We don't want to be anywhere near that path. In fact, we don't even want to be on the same planet, country, continent, universe as that path. We'll take any other path but that one, because it seems it's not a path worth taking. As Frost once opined in a poem, the path not taken, whatever one you took, we'll take the other one. Outdoing us Irish in terms of idiotic politicians. As far as the UK is concerned, I'm not sure that's a competition you really, really want to win. Is it?